I was on patrol, and I heard the call come over dispatch.
Green Drive, I have a female with stab wounds. Attention, ambulance. Ambulance is needed.
You could tell by the tone of her voice that it wasn't normal.
Sabrina has a 12-inch bread knife that she is holding in her right hand. She's covered in blood.
I could see blood on the blade. I can see blood on her. Immediately, we started screaming to drop the knife. It almost like snapped her out of whatever she was in, back to some type of reality. I kicked it away from her and we put her down on the floor. It was a very tense couple seconds.
The suspect, Sabrina Zunich, she was a 18-year-old foster child of Lisa Knafel. Also inside the house was Megan Zanella and Haley Knafel, Megan being 13 and Haley being 3 years old.
The father, Kevin, was away on a trip. He was a truck driver and he was in Michigan at that point.
Sabrina was in foster care for many years before she came to the Knafels.
Sabrina landing with the Knafels really represented a fresh start for her. She went from a troubled home with her biological father and grandma to a youth shelter where she did not want to be. She's getting along with the family. She's doing great at school. She's not getting in trouble. Things seem to be looking up for her. I couldn't find anything indicating something like this could happen.
Call me, please. You remember me, right?
Our main goal when we first interviewed Sabrina was to get Sabrina to tell us exactly what happened. We caught her coming out of the room, so we knew she did it. We wanted to know why.
So what do you recall?
Yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
getting done with my homework, going, I don't know, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to bed.
And we're at home.
Mm-hmm.
What, anything unusual happen?
I don't know.
How do you get along with Kevin?
Kevin and me are cool. I mean, he's more the one that helps me out because this has Megan to deal with, and so we made agreements a long time ago that if I need anything, that I can go to Kevin.
How about with Lisa? How are you dealing with her?
Me and Lisa have never been the best. She's never seemed to like me, and she's been wanting me out of the house.
What's your thoughts on how Lisa is not alive now?
What?
Well, you had a knife. You stabbed Lisa.
I did.
Yes, you did. And Megan called the police.
That can't be true.
Bree, it is. I'm sorry.
Lisa's really dead.
Lisa's dead. Sorry.
I don't believe this. Nobody else is hurt.
Nobody else was hurt. Thank goodness.
Sabrina never denies committing the murder. She just acts confused when I tell her that she's the one who killed Lisa Knafel. We could have waited here for 4 days and we were probably gonna get the same answers from her. We made the decision that we're just gonna cut this down because she's not gonna give us anything else that we need. I was hoping to find some text messages some emails, some search history as to why this crime took place. Over the past several weeks, Kevin Knafel and Sabrina text messaged each other over 1,000 times. I did not think it was normal for a foster father and a foster daughter to have thousands of text messages between the two of them.
How you doing? Ron Parmer.
We were confident that Kevin left for work at 8 p.m. the night before the murder, and he didn't get back into town until after Lisa's death. So we wanted to know from his perspective as to if there was any argument going on at the house before he left.
And then you told me you wanted to talk about his wife's work.
Correct.
That's the subject matter.
Yes.
So,
I told his lawyer that we would just talk about the work, but I was hoping that maybe he would open up and give us some insight as to what was going on and why the reason that this happened.
Kevin, do you know anything that was happening at the house the night before you left for work that night?
well, hang on a second. We just talking about his wife's work. What's going on at the house the night before is not his wife's work.
Okay. Where does your wife work at?
Cowlitz County Children's and Services.
What does she do there?
She was a social worker for the children's section.
He was looking down. There was no tears. There was no anger.
Were you and Lisa in the process of going through a divorce?
Okay, now we're getting outside the scope.
Kevin Knafel was not willing to help the police in finding out exactly what happened to his wife. Why is he not cooperating with us? What is he hiding from us? So a proffer is a good faith first step when the defense attorney, the prosecution meet with the suspect. It's an opportunity for them to be 100% complete honest and tell exactly what happened. It's a first step into a plea agreement. We cannot use this against her in court.
What we believe from conversations is that what led up to this homicide, to this murder, is that there was another party involved in planning that.
Yes. It was Kevin Knafel, my foster father. It was Kevin's idea, and it was talked about after we were having sexual relations, and him and Lisa were having problems in marriage. He wanted to get a divorce, but Haley, which is a 3-year-old daughter of his and her, was in the picture, and he wanted full custody. She would get custody, or it would be shared, and he didn't want that happening. So the alternative was for this to happen.
When was it, after you started to live there on a daily basis, that your relationship with Kevin changed? When did the sexual nature start to change?
It all started not with sex, but with massages, because he was a truck driver and his legs would cramp, so it was inner thigh. Then it progressively got into sex.
Does he ever tell you, hey, you can't tell anybody about this?
All the time.
Did he say what would happen if you told
Then
him?
you'd be taken out of my care and I could lose my foster parent license.
What did you say in response to that?
I would never do that.
Okay.
Tell on him.
As Sabrina and Kevin's relationship continued, Sabrina described the increasing tension she felt from Lisa, and that Sabrina felt that she wasn't welcome in the house anymore.
So Kevin convinced Sabrina that if she did kill Lisa and did get caught, that she would only do 2 to 5 years, that he would protect her, and that after she got out, that he would be there with her. They would buy a house, and basically she can be like a mother figure to Haley.
So have you talked to him since
No.
then?
Nada, no money on my books, no letters, no calls, no nothing.
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 That's when we learned that Kevin helped plan this murder. It was calculated, and essentially Kevin using Sabrina to get his wife out of the picture and to collect life insurance money. Sabrina's childhood, I believe, is probably the most important thing to understand why something like this could happen. Sabrina had never experienced a stable family, a loving household, the sense of security, the sense of belonging. Kevin seemed to know how to prey on Sabrina's vulnerabilities.
In my opinion, the verdict came very quickly. The jury came up with a guilty verdict. I believe it took a matter of about 2 days.
She was described as having some sort of a mental episode. The mother made a decision to take her up to the hospital to have her checked. The mother and daughter that brought her there left, leaving Rory in the care of the hospital. For whatever reason, she ended up leaving before she was actually seen by a physician. We see her exiting the hospital on her own. That was the last known sighting we had of her.
Communications.
I'm a plumber and I'm on site for a job, and we've got we're snaking a drain. And we've been pulling back, we probably pulled back about 10 pounds, 15 pounds of it looks like flesh type of stuff, meat, and we don't know what it is.
The issue started several days before. He didn't want any plumbers called. He tried snaking the drain himself. He was taking efforts to fix it. By the 29th, it was getting so bad. The smell, the pipes were backing up into the people's bathtubs. People upstairs just took it upon themselves to call a plumber. The officers on the scene decided to knock on the door of Adam Strong's basement apartment. They recall him putting his head down and making a comment almost instantaneously that the jig's up, it's a body. He commented to the arresting officer, if you want the rest of her, she's in my freezer, and she's pretty defleshed. And there, in fact, was somebody in the freezer, as Adam said. Rory had a distinct tattoo. She had the word alive tattooed on her neck. And when they looked through the freezer, they found a human head. And there was a tattoo clearly displayed. I knew right then, yeah, it's Rory. We didn't know at that point what the cause of death was. To lay that charge, you need the grounds. The decision was made to continue our investigation to see where it took us down the road.
said to the officers, if you're looking for the rest of her, you'll find her in the freezer. My question to you is the person in that freezer, Rory?
I decline to answer that question.
Okay. You're saying you decline to answer it, but you're shaking your head this way. Does that mean anything?
No.
Okay. Any interest from you at all in telling us your side of things?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Okay. All right.
I was told these things go on for like hours. Is that true? Again, it's true.
After 3 hours of doing it, it was clear we weren't going to get anywhere.
Excuse me.
We were just going in circles.
Obviously, you don't care enough to help. Are the tissues often needed? Why, do you want some? No, I'm good. Yeah.
Let's just shut it down now. We could have sat there for another 3 or 6 hours. I don't think we were going to get any different results.
Great, you know what? We'll walk you back.
Really, all I got from that interview was a sense of who Adam was to help us go further down the road with the investigation.
Thank you very much.
It was the worst apartment I've ever been in for clutter and dirt and mess. You could barely move because of a few little walkways in there.
There was a number of sex toys located in the apartment, restraining devices, handcuffs, and whatnot.
There was a bent hammer we had located Rory's DNA on. Rory's running shoes were located in a bag in the apartment. There was blood spatter located on the wall and bottom baseboards leading into Adam's bedroom. That knife's only designed for one use and one use only. It's a knife used by hunters for gutting and skinning animals. To a logical person, it doesn't make sense. You keep all that evidence around, but it seemed to be the way Adam thought. The DNA that was located on that knife, it wasn't through blood. It was tissue-like material. We sent that knife off for analysis. We received the results back. That knife contained the DNA of a second female.
The second victim was a 19-year-old female who went missing in 2008, and very much like Rory, she was out of the house on her own. Both victims were in their late teens, and both victims were of more of a petite build, longer, brown hair.
Almost a splitting image of each other. She went missing 10 years prior, and Adam went undetected for 10 years. It makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
I certainly felt some pressure. The reality is, if there was no conviction, then he was a free man.
How you doing? Good, you? Had better days.
Oh, I'm sure. Paul Mitten.
Adam's wrong.
Adam, you call me Paul today.
All right, Paul. I have been amazed at how well I have been treated. Other than a few staff members at the 8SAG.
And that's going to continue today.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. I mean,
That's good. That's wonderful.
Well, you know what?
Certainly checked into how he had been treated thus far. That's important. Speaks towards admissibility. Addressed any needs that he had, and he said he hadn't eaten, so we took care of that. I certainly knew we couldn't rush into talking to Adam about the case, given the fact how it went with the two detectives back in December of 2017. Sharing a meal with somebody, breaking bread with somebody, it's a chance to bond and talk. And then once that had gone on for an hour and a half or so, I started to talk about the case a little bit.
How old was Rory? 18. Okay, how much of her body did you guys get back? Obviously the entire skeletal structure, right?
Well, we obviously, whatever was in the house.
Yes, in the freezer.
Yes.
And how much of it were you able to pull out of the pipes?
Quite a bit. It was bad luck.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. They're like, you're stupid. I'm like, you kidding me?
Well,
that's an awesome way.
Yeah.
I just got greedy, that's all.
Paul, importantly, doesn't react to what most people would perhaps react to, which is, again, a rather shocking thing to say.
Every time there was a little bit of information given to me, maybe even unknowingly by Adam Strong, inside I was giving myself a little fist pump, only because I thought we were advancing the case a little bit here.
So, the 24th is when you start this. You said Christmas Eve?
Yes.
Are you doing this while it's frozen or partially defrosted?
Completely defrosted.
Okay. Now that would take several hours, wouldn't it?
No, not in a bathtub full of hot water.
Oh, okay. Like within a couple hours?
I wouldn't wager. I had to fill the bathtub up a few times. How's that
To
sound?
keep the water hot?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I don't know if I should really be talking about that, but ultimately you do have me on the...
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
Yep.
He thinks, and they are, only talking about dismemberment and disposal, but in fact it's allowing, in this case, the judge ultimately to make inferences about what must have happened during the actual murders that took place.
All right, well, I'm gonna blast.
Man, go get some sleep, dude.
Listen, I appreciate you sticking it out.
Well, you didn't really have a choice.
No, but,
I probably said more than I should have.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, but that's okay.
The judge watched the entire 12-hour interview, went through it, and the ruling came back quite clearly that Strong was well taken care of. He seemed comfortable. His needs were all met. There was no trickery. There was no oppression. This was essentially a slam dunk in terms of admissibility, which is rare for a 12-hour interview.
Adam was convicted of first-degree murder on Rory and ultimately convicted of manslaughter on the second victim.
Detective Mitten and the investigative team got a first-degree murder charge and a manslaughter with no confession.
There definitely was a danger. They pulled the indignity, so if things went south in that interview room, he may have walked. That would have been a travesty.
It's really tough to describe Adam Strong. I have never met an individual like him. It was a tough investigation, but we speak for the victims. We're trying to bring them justice and give the family answers. The sentence he was given is the maximum sentence you can receive in this country. So yes, I feel justice was served.
Wound to the head, focus, lots of blood. God.
Pounds! Stay on me, Drew. Clear. Clear. Got blood in the kitchen, blood down this hall. We got one down, shell casing on the floor.
As we were in the process of obtaining a search warrant, we were able to determine that it was Laura Grillo that was deceased on the floor. Laura Grillo was 37 years old. She was very active in her community.
She was like this ray of sunshine. She wanted to just make the world a better place. She was gonna get married in a week. Laura and John were together about 7 years total.
Together, they have one child, 4 years old, and Laura has 2 older children from previous relationships.
He had asked if Laura was in the house.
Listen to me. It looks like a gunshot wound. That is all I can tell you. You have cameras on the house? Yes. Do they record?
They used to. I don't know if they do.
Okay.
We did not find any forced entry to the residence at all, and the rest of the home appeared to be untouched. This did not appear to us to be a random attack. Somebody wanted her dead.
Basically, the goal was to confirm John's whereabouts on the morning of the murder.
Just got off the phone with the police officers and detectives at the scene. I'm sorry for your loss. I want you to know that we're going to find out what happened. Get them closer.
When we started the interview, he cried quietly for about 60 seconds.
What would be the motive for someone to come in the house, attack Laura, and take her? No idea. Somebody chose to come in that house. But why? That's what we're going to find out. Did Laura receive any bad news? Lately? No, to my knowledge. Okay, everything was good. I understand y'all know a wedding coming up. Yes, we're wearing a week. In a week. She was a love couple because of the wedding. She was really exposed to me.
John answered my questions that he didn't owe anybody no money, nobody was threatening the family. They were pending a wedding, and he seems to be excited. He didn't stand out to be a suspect.
A lot of the people that we talked to described John as a very controlling person. He didn't treat Laura very well in public. We found out that John wanted out of the relationship with Laura, but he also was trying to maintain possession of his daughter. We were able to gather video surveillance footage from a couple of home improvement stores that John told us he went to that morning in Dallas, which proved that he was actually there at the time that Laura was killed. So we knew that he wasn't responsible for this himself, but we couldn't say at that point that he didn't have some involvement in setting this up.
And we were able to confirm that a short time later, he had met up with 2 workers in his construction business.
Jesus was John's right-hand man, kind of his job foreman, John's go-to person.
James said that he had only been working for the company for 3 weeks, so he had barely met John.
And he texted me, don't be late, whatever.
Don't be late to
8 o'clock. We were gonna meet up at Home Depot.
Which one?
In Dallas. What happened then?
Just started unloading doors.
Okay.
He pulled up and
He being
John.
Okay.
John showed up and everything. We started working. Yeah.
Okay.
Both Jesus and James were very upfront, very cooperative, very talkative. The stories matched.
Jesus seemed a little too laid back, just laughing and joking around in the interview room. Some of that stuff didn't really make sense when his boss's fiance, who he had also known for several years, was just killed. Jesus told us in his initial interview that he stayed in Dallas the entire morning Laura was killed, and his phone records showed otherwise.
And what we found is about 8:26, he pinged a tower in Rowlett.
And the time that his phone hit a cell tower in Rowlett, about a mile from Laura's house, was right about the time that we believed that Laura was killed. We know that James and Jesus were together that morning prior to them meeting up with John. We wanted to talk to James again, to let James know that we knew Jesus was lying to us.
You said this twice, that Manuel went to your house about 8:30, 8:45, but I've got information that puts Manuel somewhere else.
Just be honest.
That time frame. Not at your place.
He was at my place.
I have proof that he was not at your place that early.
That's what time he was at my place.
I'm telling you, I've analyzed everything. He was not there.
Still, even as we confronted him with facts that we knew, he continued to deny, but I classified him as a weak denial. We knew that he knew something about the murder.
They still haven't released it, James. No, I mean, no. I hope not. He was with me the whole time.
They were clearly concerned about James being at the police department for so many hours and what he was telling us. We were able to get in contact with a couple of his ex-girlfriends, a former roommate of his, and these people had direct knowledge about Jesus being hired by John to kill Laura.
Also, we were able to get a tip that Jesus was in Florida, and we provided that information to the United States Marshal Service.
Hey, James. Jim on with the Rangers. How you doing?
James seemed to be very intrigued by the Texas Rangers. He really seemed to like dealing with the Rangers, like talking to the Rangers.
Well, I know that you dealt with some guys, but I'm a little bit different than them because really all I do is homicides.
You actually remind me of the legend of the Texas Rangers that I heard about. But the old Wild West days.
Yeah.
They'll send all these marshals and sheriffs in there, and it took one Texas Ranger.
One white, one Ranger, right? Okay.
Texas Rangers, they're a legend here in Texas. I think it made an influence on James in order to give more of the truth. You see, his arms are open, he's pretty relaxed, and that's a good posture to move in, to draw in more of the truth.
You're on the edge of the Grand Canyon, right? And what I'm going to ask you to do is take a leap of faith and to trust me. All right?
You're my friend, right?
I'm trying to be your friend. I'm the best friend you have in the whole freaking world.
Should we go get your pen and paper?
So how's it kick off?
Alright, when Jesus first mentioned anything about this, I disregarded it. I thought he was just about to smoke. He shows up in the morning and we get in the car and we go. The whole time, I'm still thinking he's even when he gets there. He gets out, he does his thing. I heard nothing.
And when he gets back in the car, what does he say to you?
Let's go. That's what he said. Yeah, he shot her.
Is that how he did it, or?
He just shot her. Right in the head.
Right, but it's pretty obvious that John ordered it.
Yeah.
Did Jesus ever say how much John paid him for it?
He was boasting about something about 15 grand.
Once James finally did decide to tell us what he knew, we were able to take John into custody as well.
Hey, come on in. Have a seat.
This was a well-planned murder, and we needed to close this case. We needed John to confess.
Let me cut to the chase a little bit. Jesus is a dumbass, all right? At the end of the day, you shouldn't hire a dumbass to do a job because he's going to screw it up, all right? And if he doesn't screw it up, he's going to talk about it.
I didn't hire the dumbass, that's my problem.
Do what?
I did not hire the dumbass. I did not pay him any money, that's my problem. I did not want Laura killed. I tried to get married with her for at least 3 years. I loved her, I still love her.
Say this. I'm sorry.
Oh, I am sorry that my wife was killed. I cried so many times. I mean, you're telling me that, basically admitting that I hired him to do the murder. That's what you're telling me.
Am I telling you to admit that? No, I already know that you did that. I'm giving you an opportunity to tell the truth.
I need to talk to the attorney.
Both John and Jesus were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And because James did decide to cooperate in this investigation, he was allowed to plead guilty to a murder charge instead of capital murder, and he was sentenced to 25 years. I was glad we were able to hold the individuals responsible, accountable for what they did.
Carl didn't show up to work, which was not like him at all. He never missed work. So people started calling, and of course they called me. Do you know where he's at? I was like, no. One of his friends started calling around and ended up calling the police.
When the Newton Falls Police Department arrived on scene, they did not notice any signs of forced entry. Everything looked okay, and they eventually contacted Carl's parents, and they made entry to the house. We found Carl located at the bottom of the stairway, covered in a tarp and a comforter, with gunshot wounds.
How I found out was my oldest brother called me.
From looking at the condition of the body, the estimate was he had been dead 2 or 3 days.
We discovered he had 3 gunshot wounds, 2 to the torso and 1 to the head. And the gunshot wound sustained to Carl's head was at close range.
It was obvious signs of foul play, instantly apparent. We were told that Claudia was originally from Brazil, that in the late 90s she moved to the U.S., became a naturalized U.S. citizen.
Carl met Claudia through Match.com, and he dated her for a couple months, and then for whatever reason, he decided to run off to Las Vegas and go get married. That was a little impulsive for him. 6 to 9 months into the marriage, he started expressing some concerns about being married to Claudia. He just said he wasn't happy with her and wanted to get away from her. I believe she was taking his money. That's what he believed. So he started talking to me about wanting to get divorced.
There were multiple efforts by the police and others to contact Claudia Herring. They could not connect with her.
Nobody really knew where she was, and so she was quickly a person of interest. Within a matter of a couple months, we had Claudia located in Brazil. But based on Brazilian law and the Brazilian Constitution, they did not allow for their extradition of citizens to a foreign country, even if they're suspected of committing a crime such as homicide.
So the U.S. government, they just ran into a brick wall. Brazil just didn't want to cooperate. Claudia was just living freely, out in the open. Her belief was Brazil would never extradite her, so she just got away with murder. I was looking at a couple hours, almost every night, corresponding with the embassy. I just really wasn't willing to give up.
That family never let go to the idea that anybody could get away with killing their son, their brother. Our case was in the late 90s. Claudia becomes an American citizen. She signs her documents taking allegiance with the United States of America and denying her loyalty to Brazil. That got us in the door. I said, I don't want her Brazilian ass, I want her American ass.
It was a huge relief to get her back. It was like a big block off my shoulders.
Out of the blue, just mid-flight, she says, you know a wife doesn't kill her husband without a good reason. It put those of us on the plane in a really tenuous or unique position. We don't know enough about the case to question her, but on the other hand, we have no legal obligation to make her stop talking. And she spent the next couple hours of this flight telling the story that she wanted to have heard.
Now, it's my understanding, from what I hear, that while you were on the plane right up here, you gave these guys a statement about what happened. That
Yeah, partial.
partial statement. Okay, great. But I kind of want to start at the beginning. I want to go back to March 15th, 2007.
Okay, you're gonna start from the end.
Well, yeah, well, the beginning of the end. Yes. Kind of. I
start
think,
backwards. It's gonna start backwards.
I-
It's not fair.
I think, in fairness, I think what you had already talked to Tony and I about on the plane, I think that would be a very good place to start.
As soon as we got married, but I didn't want to be married to him. All of a sudden, he was a different person. He scared the life out of me. He treated me very, very bad. He was like very aggressive with me. He beat me. It was torture. He tortured me.
During the interview, Claudia was claiming to be a battered wife, which we found no evidence of.
What she was saying didn't match what the detectives were hearing from any of his friends, family, former girlfriends. In those cases where you have that type of abuse, there is always some type of corroboration. In her case, there was zero.
I was pregnant, and he got very, very angry. He went crazy. He said, I never want to be a father. I never want to have children. I want a wife. I said, but I'm 4 years old. I can't. I'm not going to get an abortion. You will get an abortion.
One of the things that I noticed right away was how rehearsed everything she said seemed to be. There were a lot of statements that she made in the interview room that were just verbatim, just word for word what she had said on the plane. Even some of her hand movements. It was like she had been practicing this story, and that struck me as really odd.
And after that, things start spiraling out of control. right?
Yeah. I had a plan. If he doesn't want to accept this pregnancy, I'm gonna kill myself. I bought a gun. I went to firing range, right? Because I want to shoot. They have to understand about the recoil.
I can't say that I've really been made aware ever of somebody who bought a gun or obtained a gun to commit suicide that went to the shooting range and practice. Here's the thing from the aspect of an interview. Sometimes a lie is more powerful than the truth.
We just had to let her keep talking because the more that she does that, the worse it is for her.
So he got home, and I said to him, forget it. I'm not gonna have an abortion. And he grabbed me. He threw me on bed, and he grabbed my throat. I just defended myself. He was very angry, and I already had this plan to commit suicide. He said, that's a very good idea, but just do me a favor. Go to the basement to do that, because you're gonna splash my paintings. You're gonna splash blood all over my paintings.
I mean, basically, he just told you that his paintings are more important than you.
Yeah.
So you're pissed.
Yes.
What happened next?
Well, what happened next is that I got very angry, and I got up real fast and I shot.
Shot what?
I shot at him, and I was lying down.
Come back over here, please. Please.
Yeah, I was
please.
going. I got up real fast, and I shot at him. He wasn't too far away. My plan was never, not for 1 single minute, to kill anybody but myself. Swear to God, there was not for a single minute I thought about it.
It was relief. She confessed to shooting him. Now Mike could ask the tough questions.
I guess probably the simplest question that we didn't ask. Instead of killing him, would it have been easier to just get a divorce?
I tried. He wouldn't let me.
And what was his story? What was his answer?
I love you. I beg you, won't change. I love you. I love you. I can live with you, most beautiful woman in the world. I love you. I swear I'm gonna change.
I was sitting there thinking, how could anybody believe this? Right from the beginning, it felt like theatrics. I think her narcissism overshadowed her intelligence and common sense, and that when she walked out of that room, that she probably felt like a winner.
My personal belief is I think she wasn't real pleased that he had rejected her. He wanted to get divorced from her. I don't think she was used to that, and I think she was vindictive.
Claudia was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 28 years, because that was actually one of the stipulations to the extradition.
You cannot overestimate the value of interviews and confessions.
I got very angry, and I got up real fast and I shot.
It's instrumental to our convictions. The confession brought out her lies, which were contradicted by the evidence, which in my opinion is the best kind of evidence to have.
I was relieved. I don't take cases personally, at all, ever. But this case was so different that I was happy to see some closure for the Harry family.
Sheriff's Office.
Hi, ma'am. This is Scott Sunford. Today at 324, 327, and 328, I had 3 census trips, and I've been out of town with family for a funeral. My wife was home.
Okay.
I just got home, and the board that I have over my back door has been broken. So somebody has forced their way in, and I haven't heard back from my wife. I need an officer here now.
Okay. And what's your wife's name?
Desiree Sunford.
44. I'm arriving on my call. Can you wait?
When I rolled up to the residence, I saw somebody had their spotlight on the house, and he had a pistol drawn. That person was later identified as Scott Sunford. And I asked him what was going on. why didn't you go in? He said, I don't know what's in there. Which is a very odd answer to give. I entered the house, and I remember walking down the hallway, and the first room to my left, and there were bullet casings on the floor. To the left, I could see the body of Desiree Sunford. Whoever shot her wanted her dead. At that point, when I had exited the house and walked over to Mr. Sunford and told him that there was a deceased woman in the house. We believe it's your wife. I remember telling him, I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry. He had a stone cold look on his face. It seemed like it meant nothing to him. And I told this to the detectives when they arrived on scene. I think this guy knows something about this. Either he did it, or he knew who did.
He was a 31-year-old veteran in the National Guard. He actually worked at the local training center for the military base here in Yakima County. Scott informed us that he had gone down to the Tri-Cities, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Yakima, to attend a funeral. And he attended the funeral Saturday afternoon, and then he had called Desiree, said he was going to spend the night down there.
You mentioned that you got a bunch of alarm hits on through your phone at like 3 in the morning.
He received texts from the alarm company saying something had gone wrong or something tripped the alarm.
Okay, and so why not go in the house and check things out and make sure she's okay?
Because I was afraid.
What were you afraid of?
When I saw that back door, I just couldn't decide whether I could deal with what I may or may not see.
It didn't make sense that a husband would stand back and not go into the house to see if his wife's hurt or injured.
You said you were in the military?
Yeah, 13 years.
13 years? Did you get deployed in combat areas?
Yeah, we had a couple deployments.
Where at?
Iraq.
Iraq. Well, I'm just thinking, you're a big guy. You're what, 6'4"?
Somewhere up there.
6'4", 250. You've got a firearm on you. You've been in combat. I mean, you've done some serious that most people will never do. So if anyone's going to be willing to go charging in the house and make sure their wife's okay, it would seem to me that it would be you.
In my 30-year career, I have never seen anything like this. For a guy his size, stature, and armed with a .45 to wait for a police officer to show up to check on the welfare of his wife.
He's understanding everything we have to say, but he's just not showing any emotion, no anger, no sorrow. It's just not right.
You left Yakima about 08:30 on Saturday and drove down to the Tri-Cities.
Yep.
And then you stayed at your dad's in Kennewick?
No, I actually stayed with a friend, but let's see.
What's the friend's name?
Oh, her name's Paige. She's a mutual friend.
Was it just a platonic friendship, or did you have an actual relationship with Paige?
You know, I shouldn't go there because it's kind of rude, but well, Des didn't want me to say anything to anybody, but at one point, her and Paige had a little thing going for a while there, a little experiment.
Okay, so it was Desiree and Paige who had the sexual relationship?
Yeah.
But not you and Paige? Or sometimes,
we all did.
Sometimes you and Paige too?
Honestly, we all did.
We're in the beginning of this investigation. As we learn more and more, we were finding out there was some type of a love triangle. Paige Blades was a 23-year-old mistress to Scott Sunford.
So it sounds like you and Desiree had
pretty open relationship.
Generally,
Social-wise,
no.
were- No?
Generally, no. Just with her.
Just with her. There was a special relationship with Paige?
Yeah.
We felt that we were not getting the full story. It's a relationship between a mistress and a gentleman, and that his wife is dead. Okay, how much is he involved, or how much she involved, or are they both involved? We suspected that Paige maybe was giving him an alibi, that he maybe was not there that evening, but his phone was not anywhere near the residence at the time of the homicide. Even though he's still our #1 person of interest, it just wasn't connecting him to the crime at the time. A tip came through the local Crime Stoppers telephone network, and the person told us that the name of the shooter was a Marty Grismer, and that he had killed Desiree Sunford. We had not heard that name anywhere in the investigation. We needed to confirm how this person that was calling us knew about this stuff, and it turned out that it was Paige Blade's phone number. If she knew this information, why didn't she call us directly? Things are just not adding up. Paige told us that Marty is a friend of hers, that they work together, and he kind of takes care of her.
Marty was my best friend. Marty and I started dating for a little bit until he found out about Scott, and I told him I couldn't see him anymore. He's the one that got me the house. He bought my car outright, cash. He pays my insurance. He's done my grocery shopping. He's taken very well care of me.
At one point, I believe she told us that he just worshiped the ground she walks on, like he was obsessed with her.
He asked me if I wanted him to take care of this new woman like he did Des. And I asked him what he was talking about. And apparently, he decided that if the baby was Scott's like it was supposed to be, then Desiree would cause issues. Oh my God.
We were skeptical about what type of information she was providing. Is she throwing him under the bus, or is she directing it differently for us to follow? The sheriff's office received a phone call from one of the other managers who was cleaning where Marty had his office, and found a bag of gun parts. So our team immediately drove to Moses Lake, recovered the gun parts, and took them directly to the crime lab to have them examined. It was determined that this barrel was on the gun used to kill Desiree Sunford. The bullets that we recovered from her autopsy came from that barrel. We had evidence in our hands that gave us enough to arrest him on the spot, but we'd really like to have a confession.
What's your relationship with Paige?
It's been complicated over the years. I mean, she was the best man at my wedding. So, I mean, she was my best friend for a while there.
Were you two involved in a sexual relationship at one time?
Not exactly, no. We just fooled around a bit on there early on, but I was taking care of things for her financially. Fixing up her house, fixing up her plumbing, finding her a place to live, moving her butt in there. Moving stuff out of storages for her when the bills were running out on there. I've tried to be there for her because I wanted a relationship with her. Like a moth to a flame, I kept going back and trying to help her, even after her own mother told me you probably shouldn't be her friend.
Did you ever offer to kill Desiree Sunford for Paige?
No, I haven't. I've never offered to kill anyone for anything. It's not in my nature.
Have you ever discussed killing her with Paige?
No.
Did she ever ask you to kill Desiree Sunford?
No.
Paige is saying that you are the one who shot and killed Desiree Sunford. She said that you confessed that to her And she came in and gave a taped statement to that effect.
Can't believe that she's doing that. I mean, didn't kill anyone. She's pinning the on me.
You work at Basic American Foods, and they said that you were suspended from work for having gun parts at work. Okay, tell me about that. What kind of gun parts are we talking about?
I had a gun barrel that I left there.
A gun barrel?
Yeah.
Okay. Where it gets even worse for you is this gun barrel that we've been talking about. That's the gun barrel that was in the gun that killed Desiree Sunford. I've already retrieved that gun barrel from Basic American Foods, and I've already had the ballistic analysis done on it. And the slugs that were pulled from Desiree's body came from that gun. After everything you've done for her, after all the money, blood, sweat, tears, and love that you gave to her, and she turned around and you over.
I know.
An Alford plea is he's not admitting to the crime. He's not confessing to the crime. He's just saying that the state, which would be the prosecution, has enough evidence to get a conviction.
The medical center director contacted our 24/7 duty phone number and indicated that the facility had reviewed multiple instances going back to January of 2018 and had identified inpatients who had suffered severe low blood sugar, all of which, with the exception of one, had passed away shortly thereafter.
The victims in this case were all elderly males. They all had various health conditions. However, the clinical expectation was that they were all supposed to be discharged. Death did not appear to be imminent.
Some of the medical doctors found it unusual, first of all, that there were multiple non-diabetic patients that were dying of these severely low blood sugars.
There was no logical reason why their blood sugar plummeted to such dangerously low levels.
Within a day of opening their investigation, they contacted the local FBI office, and we got involved.
Through time cards, work schedules, and other records, that helped narrow down the possible list of subjects or suspects that could be involved in the case.
It quickly became apparent there were a total of 4 individuals at the hospital out of 1,200 employees who were there at each of the dates for these events.
Rita Mays was an uncertified nursing assistant who worked in the medical surgical unit that they referred to as Ward 3A. She was responsible for taking the vitals of patients, intake and outtake, as well as taking glucometer or finger stick readings of blood sugar levels of patients.
It is 8:17 p.m. Special Agent Earl Gilliam here with Miss
Rita Mays.
What's your title?
I'm a nurse's aide. In the initial interview, you really just want her to do as much talking as possible so they can go back later and impeach the information that she gave us.
Our team was directly across the hall to just listen in We were putting the pieces together to see what we could make of what she had to say.
You ever administer insulin to patients?
No.
Not at all?
No. Aides are not to give any type of meds.
And what about the med room? Do you go to the med room where they keep the medications?
The only time that I've gone in there is when I've been with a nurse.
She denied being in the medication room alone, which we knew was contradictory with what witnesses told us previously. And what's important there is that the insulin was stored in the medication room.
Some of Rita Mays' coworkers on 3A had various accounts that stuck out to us as far as red flags. She more or less did not act normal when compared to the rest of her coworkers. There were some instances where she held patients' hands while crying bedside with them as well too, which a lot of the staff indicated to us was abnormal.
I'm not going to find that what you're telling me, I'm not going to find that part of it's not true or all of it's not true.
No, sir. I will swear. I will swear to it.
Okay, and you
I will
don't know.
swear to it. If we had to go to court, I would swear to it.
Would you be able to take a polygraph concerning this and pass it?
I will not take a polygraph.
Why not?
Why not?
I'm asking.
Because I have a torn ACL and I have constant pain and I wouldn't pass it.
Okay. The pain would make you not pass it.
Yes, sir.
We learned that Rita May's husband had been in jail during the times in which the murders took place. Rita May's husband would call her almost every morning after her overnight shift ended.
Night. Was it? Oh, yes.
During some of these calls with her husband, Rita indicated her struggles with her interactions with these patients.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, I had to take over sitting one of the one-on-ones, and the one I was sitting with, I wanted to freaking strangle.
Why?
I couldn't keep him in bed. They had given him Haldol, and that didn't work, so they gave him 2 shots of Haldol, and he still was wound up.
When she returned the following shift after having placed that call and made those comments, the same patient suffered low blood sugars again, indicative of this patient being administered insulin 2 different occasions.
Nice to meet you. My name's Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
We had a special agent from the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit come out.
They offered for Special Agent Carrie Robbins to participate and to conduct the interview.
We had been prepping her for it, just one interviewer in the room.
My understanding is, did you win the Nurse of the Year award? The year before last, Nurse's Aide. Yeah, and I've heard that. And I've heard that you're the go-to person. You do exemplary work.
The interviewer does pay compliments to Mays that would really allow Mays to agree with her and engage her in talking. It builds a little bit of rapport, but it also makes Rita feel that she has the power in the conversation.
For whoever may have had a role involvement in that, do you think there's ever a justification for doing something I don't know why. That would be crazy to do something like that. That's basically taking a life. And that's not a good thing. Not at all. I'm here to listen and to want to understand you and what happened. Are you saying I did something? Is that what you're trying to say? Because I didn't do anything. Whatever you did doesn't change who you are. It doesn't. You're still that person. I didn't do anything. There's a lot of people saying you did. Tell me what happened. The truth. After today, I cannot make that promise to you. That you'll be sitting across from somebody who will listen to you.
You can see she's hunched her shoulders and drawn her arms across her body as pretty defensive. So to me, I think she was panicking a little bit.
I think with what you're accusing me of, from here on out, I need a lawyer.
Right after the interview, there was a major payoff because within a few hours of that end of the second interview, she actually buys a book called I'm Dead, Now What? Indicating that she's having potentially some suicidal thoughts. Why? Because she's just been told she is the prime suspect in all of these cases.
It almost gave us more fuel to figure this out. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
Between the second interview in August of 2018 and October of 2019, the bulk of the investigative work was complete during that time period. The investigation involved a review of hundreds of thousands of VA employee emails, years worth of internet browsing activity, a review of hundreds of hours of recorded phone calls, a review of other electronic media and electronic evidence as well.
What we learned at that point in the investigation was that Rita would talk with other staff members on Facebook Messenger, and they would, in real time, be discussing patients and what was going on the ward. And Rita was referring to some of our victims. What happened to this patient who was in this room, and what about this patient? So she was following up to see, essentially, did they live or did they die?
The interviews were important. Despite not obtaining a confession, there was no eyewitness, no surveillance camera footage, no murder weapon, no DNA, no fingerprint. Therefore, the culmination of the interviews strengthened the investigation.
Although we did not get the verbal answers and the confessions that we were looking for, just to be able to tap into the mindset of Rita was just as important.
What's the location of your emergency? Hey, 306 2 mile drive. My boyfriend's unresponsive. He has some poke wounds inside of himself, and he's late. I put him in the shower to revive him. He's not revivable. Please help me. Please.
Tell me the address.
I don't know. I came home, there's so much blood. Yes. I need my man.
Okay, come here.
Yes.
Walk with me.
Oh my God. No, baby. Oh my gosh, please.
Ryan Lamb was uncontrollably emotional, screaming, yelling, crying, just wailing. They determined that for safety's sake, he needed to be handcuffed and removed from the scene.
Please, please. Okay. I just came home.
As the police entered the unit, they could see blood on the doorstep and on the landing. They said that the apartment was in disarray. It appeared as if there had been some sort of altercation. There was blood on the bed, blood on the floor. You could see foot marks and fingerprints on the linoleum. Once they got into the bathroom, they found Ryan Nixon in the bathtub in a semi-seated position with the water running. I think he was only clothed in his underwear. Mr. Lamb had reported that Mr. Nixon had poke holes in him. We later learned that those were the result of being stabbed with a pair of scissors that we found in the residence. Ultimately, it was determined that Ryan Nixon was deceased.
No! Oh my God, Mama! Oh my God, no! No!
I approached it from an informational standpoint and asked him, what can you tell us about this situation? Do you know who did this? So Ryan, I know that you've told the other officers kind of what took place, but I'm sorry I wasn't there for that. Can you tell me from start to finish?
I just recall like coming in and there was like blood all over this dude. He cracked his nose or something. And I go in, and he was laying right on the kitchen. There's a wall that separates the kitchen from the living room. He was laying up against that, and he had scissors in his belly, and he was bleeding really heavily from the back of his head.
How did his head get cut?
I don't know. There was blood on the back of his head when he leaned up from the wall. And then he just called for help. And like, he said it was fine. It was fine.
Ryan said it was fine.
He said he was totally like conscious and like talking to me and said it was fine.
Mr. Lamb said that they didn't have a functioning cell phone, so his first thought was to run to a local gas station, which is quite a distance away, probably half a mile or 3/4 of a mile from where the apartment was, to utilize the phone. I guess common sense tells me that if you have somebody that has a pair of scissors sticking out of their stomach and has an injury to the back of the head, why didn't you go to a neighbor's immediately and ask to use the phone to call 911?
What do you got on the inside of your shirt there? It looks like you got... That was from other night.
At least one of the patrol officers that had interaction with Lamb and myself recognized that there were some marks on his chest and abdomen. The marks to me look like a 4-pronged fork. I believe one of the patrol officers asked him about that, and initially he said it's not relevant. He said it's a rash.
Can you unbutton your shirt so I can see that?
There were a couple of them that had fresh blood as a result of the poke marks.
which told me that they were fairly recent. So it was not normal, in my opinion, and I wanted to know why.
What's that from? It looks like a fork.
Yeah.
What's it from?
Well, this really sex. Sex.
Okay.
So we like to put belts around each other's necks. Or, sometimes we would immobilize, completely restrain the other one. That's what we're into.
One of the neighbors upstairs to Nixon's apartment told me that she heard two people arguing. One of the voices said, "You stabbed me in the chest." The other voice said, "Well, you stabbed me with a fork." Obviously, that was significant to me because Lamb had fork marks on his chest and abdomen, and Nixon had been stabbed in the chest with a pair of scissors. Learning that information, as well as other things that I had gleaned from the interview, I was fairly confident that Lamb had played a role in Mr. Nixon's death. Here's where we're at with this. I just talked with the county attorney's office, and based on the information I have, we're going to be charging you with deliberate homicide.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah.
Whoa. 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 No way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think that Mr. Lamb's reaction, he was legitimately shocked. I think that he thought he could throw up some smoke and mirrors and he'd be walking out of the back door of the police department that day, and that didn't happen. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you here, please explain to me what happened so I have a clear picture, you know, of what took place, you know? I mean, otherwise I gotta go based on the facts that I have.
Understood. Yeah. I poked him too hard, maybe his head, or if I poked him in the back of the head, I'm not sure.
So how did the blood get out by the front door? How did that happen?
Maybe he got up, was like looking for me.
Okay.
I didn't leave him. I didn't leave him in the shower. I didn't leave him anywhere near the bathroom. Like,
okay.
It was right there by the clothes, and it was just like so much blood, and then it started like getting really like just on the back of his head right there. And I thought he had like banged his head, or maybe I poked him in the neck or something.
When he confessed to killing Mr. Nixon, it was somewhat of a relief for him.
It probably not like triggering me to get some information. Like, I really, this is such like an accident. It's gone like so bad.
Okay.
Oh my God. My mama.
Mr. Lamb used the scissors on Nixon, and he said he didn't intend to harm him as bad as he did, or certainly not kill him. Based on the information I had learned through the investigation, had Ryan Lamb called for help sooner, there was a possibility that Ryan Nixon could have been saved. The autopsy revealed that there was a fractured rib. The sternum was fractured also. and then internal organs were damaged, causing Mr. Nixon to bleed to death. The prosecutor felt that that warranted deliberate homicide because the level of force that was used. Lamb and his defense attorneys claimed at trial is that it was a domestic violence situation where Nixon attacked Lamb with the fork, and Lamb was defending himself with the pair of scissors. Lamb took an Alford plea, and what that means is Lamb wasn't owning up to any culpability in this situation, but felt that if the case were tried again, that he would likely be found guilty. It's never as clear-cut or obvious as people think with a confession, but I'm happy with the job that we did. I feel satisfied with our investigation in this case, and I don't want to sound arrogant or boastful, but I would challenge any other investigator to do more.
Dallas 911, this is Liz from provoking.
Yes, I need paramedics and police. I'm at 30 eastbound. I need somebody here real quick.
What's going on there?
Someone has shot a driver. Yeah, this is the postal service. There's a postal vehicle here. I don't know if he's still breathing, but there's a gunshot through the front windshield. Oh, man.
We learned that one of our motor vehicle service drivers was shot and killed while he was in the course of his duties on I-30. We were able to identify the victim as Mr. Tony Mosby. He had been with the post office about 14 years, 58 years of age at the time.
There was multiple gunshots to the front of Tony Mosby's postal truck. One of the rounds had gone through the windshield and struck him in the face. And that was the round that took his life.
Her relative worked for the Postal Service, and I think once they had learned Mr. Mosby had died, it was weighing on her.
Today's date is February 21st, 2018. Time is 11:48. Jessica, my name is Derek Cheney. I'm with the Dallas Police Department.
And I'm Paul Ecker with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service.
If interviewing and interrogating anyone, you have to make them comfortable. She was very nervous, very scared, because she knew this murder has been on the news. She knows information about it.
We really appreciate you stepping up and doing the right thing and being here, okay?
Okay.
You're not under custody.
Right.
You're not in custody, and you're free to leave at any point. So all this is voluntary information that you're providing, yes? No one's threatening you or anything to that effect? Okay.
We had dinner there. After we were done, his cousin, Donnie, actually called us to see if we wanted to go bowling or anything. We had them meet us outside the restaurant.
Okay, and you said they. Who was all?
Donnie is his cousin, and Chanel is the girlfriend.
Do you know him by Donnie? Do you know by his last name?
His Farrell.
Donnie Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tell me what happened.
We decided that we were going to go to a bar and shoot some pool.
A lot of times people, they're a little bit hesitant to come forward when it comes down to these investigations. They always have a saying, snitches get stitches. So we want to make sure that they can talk to us and come forward about everything.
What happened?
We then left and went to CJ's Dillard's. We were there roughly until about 1:30. After that, we tried to go back to the hotel. Chanel was driving.
Okay.
Donnie was in the passenger seat.
Okay.
There was a U.S. Postal truck in front of us. She was driving very close to this truck. She then swerved over to go around him. We passed up this U.S. Postal truck. According to Donnie, the driver of that truck flipped us off. When I looked to the right, and the gun that Donnie had was sticking out to my side of the window.
Okay. How did he position his body?
He kind of leaned out a little bit to where his head and his right arm was sticking out of the window. I had heard it go off.
How many shots did you hear?
Roughly about 3.
And all 3 shots came from the gun that you saw Donnie's holding?
Correct.
Do you have your phone now?
Yes, I
Could you
do.
show me a picture of him?
I sure can.
At that point, we have now identified the shooter, Don Farrell. We already had an idea of what our challenges was. We know that he will deny he had any involvement, but also he didn't know what we knew already. It's all about that approach, so that way they'll know me, not just a guy with a gun and badge. Walking into that room knowing that everything is at stake, it's game time. Thanks, so I need to talk to you, okay? All right. You all right there? So, what's your name, man?
Donnie Farrell.
Donnie, okay. Where you from?
Where I'm from?
Yeah.
Where I was born?
Yeah.
Los Angeles, California. I was born in West Covina, California.
You from LA?
Yeah, I grew up in LA.
Okay, cool. So the biggest thing when I walked into that room, I wanted to make him feel comfortable, so my goal was to build a relationship with him, build a rapport with him. In this case, I know you were there, okay? I know you were there, and I know really what happened, but I want to help me understand, okay, what happened, Mark. Yeah, like I told you before, everybody make mistakes. You made plenty of mistakes. I made plenty of mistakes, all right? But at the end of the day, as men, okay, we own up to what we've done, right? And we move on, all right? All right, so on the way from the pool hall, where did y'all go?
It's walking. I don't remember stopping nowhere. After we left the bar, I don't remember stopping nowhere.
Okay. Huh?
Can't remember stopping nowhere else.
Okay, so
I'm like really half asleep, you know. I'm like so faded.
He kept using the term he was faded, meaning that he was under the influence. He was trying to make me believe that he was so drunk where he just don't remember anything. I knew that wasn't truthful. I know you fired at that guy. I know you fired at the vehicle that he was in, all right? You think we just showed up at your house and picked you out of all these millions of folk? You think we did that? Just out of random, we say, hey, we're gonna mess with old Donnie Jr. today. You think we did that? No, Doc. That ain't the way it works. You see what I'm saying? You're a young man. You got your whole life ahead of you. All right? But I need to know what happened. Did he make you that angry? Or was it just an accident?
I was faded.
You was faded.
I was real life out of it.
The gun. How long you owned the gun?
I ain't owned it that long. It was not even mine. It was given to me.
It was given to you. Who gave it to you?
Some guy.
Really? How? What kind of gun is it?
38.
At any moment, he could ask for his attorney.
So I wanted to make sure to keep him talking to me.
The only reason I had it, to be honest with you, being honest, is I was working at 7-Eleven. That's why it was given to me.
Okay.
Because I was working up there.
And for the past robbery, I mean, that's understandable. I mean, you gotta protect yourself all the time. But we talking about this guy here. But this man didn't deserve to die. You know what I mean? This man that you shot and killed. This man was at work. You hear me? Did you mean to do it?
No, I didn't.
Were you just trying to scare him, or what was it?
That was like my main intention.
Was it just because you thought he was trying to cut you off, or what was it?
No, I mean, at the same time, look, I ain't trying to make no excuses. You know,
Yeah.
I did what I did.
Yeah.
Gotta face the consequences. But
Yeah.
I was intoxicated. Like I said, I was so faded, man, like my eyes were barely open.
Okay. And he gave you the finger, and that pissed you off. And that's why you shot him.
So like, where is this tape gonna be showed at court?
No, it's about, yeah. I mean, this is all a part of the investigation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, yeah, I did like that.
What?
And to be honest with you, boss,
Mm-hmm.
had it been somebody else, I wouldn't even have told him.
We set the foundation where he could talk and made him comfortable. And that way he felt as if he could talk to me. I'm gonna be honest with you, you're gonna be charged with murder tonight, okay?
Well, let me ask you this straight up, man, like, you tell me I'm young, I got my whole life ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
I made this mistake.
Mm-hmm.
How long you think it ain't gonna get me?
You know, I don't know. I don't make those decisions. I'm not gonna lie to you.
What kind of murder is it?
It's murder.
It's murder?
Yeah.
He finally sank over in his chair, and you saw his shoulders drop and his head drop, and it seemed like the full acceptance was finally there. He realized this show was over. There wasn't any more denial. There wasn't any more covering it up.
What's your emergency?
Yes, I live at 85 Yale Farm Road. I think I need an ambulance.
Okay, what's going on?
The truck fell on my stepson.
The truck fell on your stepson?
Yes, and we just got home, and I don't think he's alive.
Okay, he's pinned underneath the truck?
Yeah, my husband's lifting up the truck.
His chest is crushed?
Oh, my God.
Levi was 23 when he died. He had left behind 2 young kids and was trying to make a life for himself after a troubled childhood.
Levi married very young. He was a hardworking young man, worked hard to support his family.
And I think most people would say, unfortunate, what a tragedy. A 23-year-old boy is killed for no reason.
She said she had heard from Carl's second wife, Cindy Carlson, and that Cindy had told her that she had left her husband and that she was afraid he was going to come after her, and that she believed that her husband had killed his son Levi. It was really kind of hearsay at that point, but we decided to take another look at it nonetheless.
"17 days before the death of Levi, Carl takes Levi up to a bank and he takes out a life insurance policy on Levi, but with a rider that makes the value of life insurance policy $700,000.
When I first reviewed the report from 2008, there was no mention of an insurance policy.
Of that money, Carl just spent money freely and didn't put away any savings for Levi's kids. We realized we need to take a look at this Carl Carlson and see what this person's really like.
In 1991, Carl and Christina lived with their 3 children in a very small house on a very rural property in the woods. Carl said that the children were down for a nap and that Christina was taking a bath.
Carl was out in a work shed and he hears the screams. He just said he managed to rescue his children and pull them out of their windows of their bedrooms, but he was driven back by the flames and the heat when he tried to rescue his wife.
I put a call into the investigator that was very passionate about the case back then, and he literally almost broke down crying when he received my call. Oh my God, I always dreamed that someday this call would come, and here it is.
Carl gave 3 different versions of what happened that day, how that fire started.
He was a volunteer firefighter at one point, so he has some knowledge of fire. He claimed that the dog had knocked over a jug of kerosene. Later, he said that this light blew out. There's different stories as to what the cause was, but it was suspicious.
Carl claims that he had boarded this window up because the window was broken. He used 17 nails.
Christina had a $150,000 life insurance policy on her at the time of her death. Carl got the money and used it largely to finance his move back to New York and kind of start over again with the kids.
The investigator said he was told, Carl went to New York, he's New York's problem now, and we're not putting the money into this case anymore. Just let it go. But he then said that he photocopied every single record, and they're in a box in my basement.
Go ahead and have a seat.
Want me to take care of the paperwork real quick? Will you do that, or you want to be here for that?
That's all right. I'll just go ahead and take care of this if you want to start.
Yeah.
The onset is simply to focus on the death of Levi Carlson.
I was very nervous because so much was relying on this interview, and there was a lot at stake here. If he is the person we think he is, then other people are at risk.
Tell us about it.
The day that my son died, her and I, we had a funeral to go to. Left at 11:30, 11:45, somewhere like that. It was on the other side of Seneca Lake. Son was there. He helped me. We were working on the truck, changing the transmission lines, brake lines, the whole 9 yards. Went in, gave him some money, left.
Went in where?
Went in the garage, okay? And so we got done with it, talked to him, said goodbye. And so then we left, come back a little after 4, and went out there and found him.
What do you mean you found him?
I found him dead. The truck was on him. They come in, tried doing CPR, and he was already gone. Went down to the hospital.
We weren't at all surprised he was sticking his story. You know, a lie stuck to becomes the truth, right? If he doesn't falter off that, it makes it difficult for us to put the case together.
We talked if nothing else is working, we can try some deception. Now, when you use deception in an interview, it's allowable to a point, but where that point is in a gray area, so you're taking a risk when you do it.
There's a big problem.
Now, we already knew there was no concrete time of death on this case.
Tom came up with this concept that through medical technology, we were able to tell exactly what time he died, and we knew what time Carl had left.
And I wish I could say he died in your presence. But when you walk back in there, if you're telling us the truth and saying you had a conversation with him, you're lying because he was dead at that
No,
time.
I had a conversation with him, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well, he was either dead when you walked in there or as you walked out. That's fact. You're feeling the pressure and you are not able to tell the truth right now. If you really truly felt like what you did was right, and which I think you did in a minute.
All right, I did not kill Levi. There's no way I could have. But he was dead when I went in there.
Okay. Tell us about that. Good, Carl. You're doing great, buddy.
I think he's not crying here. He's trying to put on a show for the camera and for all of us that he's emotional here. But the walls are closing on him. That's what his body language is telling us.
Do you mind if I stand back up again?
No, never mind.
John's connection with Carl is almost like a father-son relationship that started early on into this interview. We know that we have our best opportunity to get to the truth by leaving John in that room alone.
I let him down, I walked away. And I lived with that for 4 years. You know, you guys somehow, pulled that out of me. And in a way, it's been a relief.
Good. It should be relief.
But I could never hurt him. I couldn't.
You did. Carl, it's all right. Come on. You're that close, man. You're close. Come on. Let it out. Let it out.
I could tell he's ready to tell me something really big here. And gave him all the encouragement I could.
Come on. I'll walk with you if you do.
What are you going to do for me?
I'm going to stand up and say this wasn't premeditated, cold-blooded murder, that it was just something that happened. It happens sometimes, Carl. That's what I'll do for you.
It was an accident. I opened the truck door.
Okay.
When they did it, and if I had hit the box underneath it, it wouldn't have happened.
Carl, it was an accident. Why'd you try and hide it?
He comes out with his final version that he caused the truck to fall on his son and then basically walked out and left him dying on the floor.
Carl Carlson is a sociopath, pathetic human being, and he was a budding serial killer. I think he derived a high from murder. I think he enjoyed it. This wasn't a job, this case. This was about Levi. This was about Christina. It was about all the people that got their lives destroyed by Carl Carlson. The scary part was he took out life insurance policies on his 2 granddaughters.
It's insane to even think that you could take out a policy like that and not inform the mother, but he did it. And I have no doubt they were next.